Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I am back with another dose of tanking love in the form of the Waffenträger, or as I like to call it, the Waffle Tractor. I also call it Bastard. It's such an awkward, cranky, stupid tank that has little to no redeeming features until you figure a few things out that are really, really important and which should be on the box. Now, before I go any further, this is a patron-sponsored post. I know I harp on about this, and some of you have taken me to task in the past, but I'll just let you know something. I'm doing this full-time now, and if it wasn't for the patrons, who are amazing, there would be no channel at all. And I know some of you wouldn't care, but others of you do quite enjoy it. So if you are interested in helping out, sponsoring the channel, click the link here. The Waffenträger, the Waffle Tractor. Gee, I hated this tank. Took me a long while to figure this out. And there's some really idiosyncratic things about this tank. And by that, I mean there are some things that are absolutely incredibly peculiar to this tank and this tank only, which is quite rare to have in this game. And I'm going to go through those. I'm going to set you straight on a lot of things to do with the Waffle Tractor. And there's two guns, and that's the big issue, right? There's two guns, and that affects the tank in so many, many ways that you wouldn't read about it. Firstly, you've got to get used to driving backwards because you can only get gun depression over the backside of this tank. So there you go. Get used to reversing around the joint and firing like that. Secondly, I don't know how to say this. We're going to have to talk about the guns. But before we do, I want to talk about a few other things. It's typically German, right? It's a lovely tank. The guns themselves are fine weapons. There's 4 Tier X guns on the grind. You have 2 Tier X 128mm, 2 Tier X 150mm guns. So you're spoilt for choice. There's plenty of weaponry to go around for everyone. Both the guns perform very equitably and do very, very well in both Tier 9, X and 8. You'll make money, not make money, you'll do damage hand over fist if you put it in good situations and you learn how to drive the bloody thing. The 150mm has great stopping power, does a lot more ammo racking and the like than the 128mm, but it just doesn't have the gun handling that the 128mm has, obviously, because it's a massive big cannon on a tiny little Panzer IV chassis. The 150mm has 4.14 rounds a minute, 640 alpha, 0.38 dispersion, and 2.1 seconds of aim time, which is actually pretty bloody good in terms of accuracy for a 150mm. And it's also something that's interesting. The best targets for this tank are other Waffle Tractors. It's cannibalistic. You need to be firing high explosive, which the tank does very, very well, to great effect, into the largely, unarmored areas of other Waffenträgers, and that will give you huge amounts of damage. And they are easily the best targets to be shooting for, which is funny. You're a cannibal tank. You're just going to blow up other Waffle Tractors, which is great for everyone concerned. You've got to learn to do this, right? If you don't learn to do this, you are going to be in real strife. That's a grill. Happy days for him. Here's another Waffle Tractor coming down. He's going to give me a huge comeuppance, and then I'm going to give him an absolute smashing with HE, like he just did for me. Ta-ta. This is what you can do it to each other. You're not friends. You're like those spiders that have a shag and then eat each other. It's wonderful stuff. Now, the 128mm has 276mm pen on its AP, which is bloody lovely, and 352mm of pen on its APCR. Now, you've got APCR as a top promo on the 128, and heat on the 150. And this is another example of the 150 just smashing HE into tanks. It does it a lot. Like, it's a great gun for this kind of thing. And you've got to learn to set the shots up. To do that, you really want to be able to drive backwards, and you'll see I'll do that here. Now, the 460 alpha on the 128mm with 460 and 5.61 rounds a minute will give you about 2,600 DPM, which isn't great in all honesty, but it works. And the reason it works, let's go through this. Well, we've got to talk about something really important first. The two guns have very different stats for gun depression and gun elevation. Now this, my friends, is what you get with the 150mm. You get -4 degrees of gun depression, which means you can't hit jack when it's in front of you. You're going to be firing over the top of everything. You cannot get the gun down. The way you get around this is by turning the tank around. And then you get 10 degrees of gun depression over the back. But the catch with the 150mm is it has 0 degrees of gun elevation when firing over the back. The 128mm has even worse gun depression when firing over the front. It has 2 degrees of gun depression as opposed to the 4 of the 150. But it has an obscene 45 degrees of gun elevation. 45. You heard that correctly. I mean, that's just like a giraffe when you see it. It's hilarious. But both have 10 degrees of gun depression over the back. And you can see I'm using that here to get shots on this 215B. And then you drive forward, which is great because it's the easiest way to escape because you've got no armour on this tank. Absolutely no armour. 36 degrees of traverse on your turret, 38 kilometres an hour. There's the 45 degrees of gun elevation going off like a frog in a sock. The giraffe, the roaming giraffe of the vineyard plains, often like it's looking for a tall tree. It's stupid, but what that does, and this is crazy stuff here, you can find walls like dead rail where you can go right up the very back and still be effective because your gun can shoot. Other places you can do this. And like, this is so obscene, and this is why this tank is such a punish. So it works best driving backwards or on cliff faces, which is insane. And you can see here, I'm on the cliff face in the far corner of Canal, and I've got shots for days. Look at these guys. Absolutely hilarious. I'm on a cliff face. The bottom of this tank is literally at 45 degrees. My gun's got no problems. It can shoot everyone. You can't do this in most tanks. Just coincidentally. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And that's something that's absolutely fantastic about this tank. You can put it in positions that no other tank can really take advantage of. It's paper mache though, so you're going to get wrecked. And it does have some big bugs, which every once in a while, ever so rarely pop up. But the gun handling on this is superb. 0.33 dispersion and 2.1 seconds of aim time will get the job done for you. Absolutely easy peasy. And 276mm of pen on your AP means that you can go to town. It'll do the business. Like it'll pen people all over the place. You'll have to use APCR for certain Tier X tanks, but so what? You have to do that. Never feel ashamed of that. Just load the heat, load the APCR, and if people have a whinge about it, tell them not to be povo nongs and have a crack. That's it in a nutshell. So you can't run the 150mm effectively in a lot of situations because when you turn around to put shots in, for instance, like I was there on Mirage, to get shots of that 215B is all well and good. I can get the gun down. But if someone then popped over a dune on my left and started coming and having a go at me, I could not shoot them because I wouldn't be able to raise the gun up past 0 degrees of gun elevation. And that's freaky. I mean, I don't know why that's the case. It just is. The back of the gun hits the tank. I don't know. But I mean, 45 degrees of gun elevation, honestly, who thought that was a good idea? Still, you make do with what you've got. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things here now. The first is the bug. You're going to see when you get this tank on an incline, and it happens on this hill just above the spawn in mines quite a bit. Look at that. It's a banana. Just goes underneath. And it's only on that little spot there as you're pointing over the side of the tank. If you turn further to the right and fire, straight in the middle of bullseye. You turn further to the left and fire, again, it'll go straight in the middle of the bullseye. But if there are certain spots on it, like that, where it'll just banana underneath the reticle. I don't know why, but it does. And it does that too on the grill, and it also does it on the FV215B at times. But that 150 does give you stopping power, and it happens on the 150mm and the 128mm, both those tanks. Now here, we're in a really tough situation. It's a Tier X match. We've pushed out to the flank. We're having a good old flogging, and we're trying to support the rest of the team. This 704 is in a tough spot. Nice quick shot there. The 128mm can do that. It's very, very good at firing quite quickly, although the 2.1 seconds of aim time on the 150 can work. Now, you can be successful in the 150mm, don't get me wrong, if you just camp and all that kind of thing. But what you're going to find, and you can see the gun depression there just screwing with me a little bit, what you're going to find is that it's awkward, and there will be times when you just simply can't get shots off, and it will be ever so frustrating. And one of those things that just drives you up the wall, and all you can do is yell and scream and curse and snap your iPad in half and turn it into a coaster. I find the 128mm to be so much more flexible and so much more reasonable in getting shots off that I just would never go back to the 150. Any tank can camp with a 150mm and do well if the other team's silly, but the 128mm gives you that flexibility to actually get up on the walls of certain places where other tanks can't get, and that's an X factor. And that's something that a lot of people can't do and don't expect. And it can get you kills and it can win you games, and that's a good thing. I'm all for winning games and getting kills and doing stuff. And you can see here, this is fantastic. This is exactly how the gun should be exploited. We've pushed the flank, we've smashed their mediums, cost us just about all our hit points, and there's going to be a leopard here who's saying it's noob on noob. I mean, there's always those kind of people. We're going to reverse, because that's how we get our gun depression, and we're going to look for shots on this IS-7, and there we go. Happy days. Now there's just 2 left. Now remember I told you we were cannibals, so we are going to smash this Waffle tractor up as well. All well and good, but we will be looking for shots on this E100 primarily, and we're going to do that by shooting over the back and get used to driving around backwards, because it's the only way you're going to get your 10 degrees of gun depression. And there you go, pops it right down. Nice and easy. Straight away, noob versus noob, says the leopard. I don't know, whatever, buddy. And the Waffle tractor is going to pop on our right in a sec. And now this is one of the best parts about driving backwards. When you fire, you can then drive forward, which is absolutely important, because when you drive forward, it's a lot easier to get away quickly. Whereas if you're driving forward with no gun depression on the 150 or the 128, you have to push over, expose yourself to take the shot, and then back up really slowly. And that's not cool. And you do have a 38 kilometre an hour top speed, which is great. That's nearly 40 kilometres an hour. And it gets there pretty quickly too, because it's got no armour. Like, you've got no armour, by the way. Watch out. If you are spotted, do not just pop out. You will get 100% wrecked. That's all there is to it. I'll show you one more game. This is mines, and this is basically just the way the gun works. It's pretty good. We're going to donk our first shot on the T-54 that goes crawling past. Inexplicable. I don't know why T-54s are so lucky. They just are. That's 276mm of pen, and it's a critical hit into the side of a T-54. God loves a Russian. But I digress. Now, there's going to be lots of tanks popping here, and you're just going to see this 128 work and work and work and work again. It's quite bloody accurate, and you can push backwards here, and I have. So I'm right up against that back wall, and what that does is it elevates the gun just another metre or so up above the ground, which makes it a lot easier to get shots off. And when people are on the edge of a horizon like this and they're going hull down, that's really key. It can be massively beneficial to be shooting from a taller position. Obviously, we like hills, not holes. And this T-54 here is not so lucky. I'm bashing it out because Commander Buttface, my platoon mate, is struggling along there, and they're all hell for leather, desperate to kill him. That's why they're popping out. He's just about on a kill shot. There's lots of people getting screwed down the bottom, and the tank is just performing superbly. Absolutely happy days. They're coming out. It's fast firing. You've got nearly 6 rounds a minute without a rammer, without vents. Sorry, you don't run vents. Oh, by the way, that's one thing. Yeah, I nearly missed that. You need to run a camo net and binoculars. You're going to be at the back. There will be times like I pushed up then on Port Bay where it becomes necessary to expose yourself for fire, but you won't really bounce shots. I mean, it's one of the least likely shots tanks to give you a steel wall. I mean, I know I've got grill steel walls before and I've posted them up on channel, but for all that, you can never rely on this tank to bounce a shot. And people will load HE for all the time for you. They absolutely love smashing HE into you, and so they should, because that's the biggest weak point of your tank, is its inability to actually defend itself via any form of armor profile. So I run rammer, binoculars, and camo net. Now, the joy of camo net that a lot of people don't realize is that camo net will stick even when you're firing. So you get a benefit from camo net regardless of whether you're firing or not, as long as it's set. And it might not be a lot. It might hold your camo rating up from, say, 6 instead of 4 or 3. But that can be the difference between being spotted at 250 meters or 225 meters and not being spotted. And that's massive in a game that's won and lost on split-second rolls and the ability of a tank to actually get damage out before another tank. And those kind of things, like being spotted, not having to reset camo, being able to wait and see people at distance with your binoculars, and all those kind of things work in this tank's favor. You want to get this tank as far away from the enemy as possible and utilize what is a fantastic 128mm L61 gun. Now, I cannot say this is an easy tank to drive in any way, shape or form. It's an awkward bugger. But if you run the 128, if you utilize spots that no one else can utilize, if you get used to driving it backwards, I mean, can you hear the list of things you've got to get right to make this tank work? Then yeah, happy days. I mean, you see there, 13 shots fired, 12 hits, 12 penetrations. 6 enemies damaged, 4 destroyed. Happy days. What a tank. Crackerjack. The gun will work overtime and everyone will be a winner, but do not expect it to be an easy tank. So I'd grind the 128mm line, even though a lot of people love 150s, and I am a big fan of the 150s. I don't think it suits the Waffle tractor at all whatsoever. And if you want any form of flexibility and the ability to get both gun depression and gun elevation when you're shooting over the backside, then you need to be running the 128. Lots of stuff going on channel, heaps and heaps of reviews and situational games and game improvement stuff coming up. You really are killing it in terms of subscribers and comments and views, and it's just been a really good, thriving community of late. Things have picked up. The Asia Twister Cup finals were fantastic. I'm going to New York to do the finals of the English broadcast, the English broadcast of the Twister Cup finals for the whole world, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm going to be doing a patron event there as well, where I'm going to hook up with some of the patrons and say g'day. And I don't know if I'm going to be going to that thing on the 18th, which is on the Intrepid, the aircraft carrier. I haven't yet been invited, but I've asked them to invite me, so we'll see what happens. Talk to your local member of parliament, congressman, whatever, and say, hey, is Bushka coming? Let's get him there. Anyway, love you all. Look after your families. Stay safe on the battlefield, and bye for now.